The sun shone brightly over the village of Makuta, and the market was alive with the sound of traders calling out prices, children laughing, and goats bleating as they passed between stalls. In a small yellow house at the edge of the road, Ao folded her old clothes carefully. Each piece of fabric held a memory, a wrapper she had worn at her cousin's wedding, a blouse she had stitched herself years ago, and a simple dress she used to wear to church every Sunday. She smiled softly as she packed them into big woven bags. Her husband, Kelechi, sat on the porch watching her with a curious look. "Ao," he said, "you've been folding those clothes for hours? Are you sure you want to give them all away?" "Yes," she replied cheerfully. "There are many children in the orphanage who have nothing. These clothes might not be new, but they can still keep someone warm." Kelechi nodded slowly but then frowned a little. "Just be careful, my dear. Not everyone who smiles at you means well. Some people take advantage of kindness." Ao chuckled, waving her hand dismissively. "Ah, my husband, you worry too much. Kindness never goes to waste. What matters is that I give from my heart." Kelechi smiled faintly, though something in his eyes showed concern. He had seen how people could twist goodness into opportunity. But Ao's heart was pure. She always believed that helping others was her purpose. That afternoon she loaded the heavy bags into a small handcart. Her friend and neighbor Mama Tola came by to help. "Ao, you are such a good woman," she said, lifting one of the bags. "The world needs more hearts like yours." Ao smiled warmly. "We all can do something small to make life better for someone else." They started walking toward the center of the village, chatting as they went. The road was dusty, lined with mango trees and the sound of distant drums from children playing. But as they reached the market square, Ao noticed a young woman standing under the shade of a tree. She looked thin, her clothes torn and her eyes tired. The woman's name was Nara, though Ao didn't know it yet. She often hung around the market, pretending to help traders, but in truth she was known for her quick hands and clever lies. Nara watched Ao closely, noticing the big bags and the gentle smile on her face. Her mind began to turn. When Ao stopped to rest, Nara approached with a sweet voice. "Mama, good afternoon. You look tired. Can I help you carry those bags?" Ao looked up and smiled gratefully. "Ah, thank you, my dear. Yes, they are a little heavy. I'm taking them to the orphanage by the river." Nara nodded quickly, pretending to be kind. "Oh, that's far. Let me help you. I know a shorter way." Mama Tola frowned, suspicious. "Ao, I don't know this girl. Let's go together as planned." But Ao, with her ever-trusting heart, said, "She's just offering help. It's fine. We'll go slowly." Nara took one of the big bags, her eyes gleaming. Inside she could see good fabric, beautiful colors, things she could sell easily in the market. As they walked, she led Ao and Mama Tola down a smaller path through the fields. "This road is quiet," Ao said, looking around. "Yes," Nara replied quickly, "very quiet and faster." But as they reached a turn near a cluster of banana trees, Nara suddenly stopped. She set the bag down and said, "I'll go ahead and check if the bridge is clear." Before Ao could answer, Nara grabbed the bag and ran. "Hey, come back!" Mama Tola shouted, dropping her basket. Ao gasped, her heart pounding as she saw the woman disappear down the path with the bag full of clothes. She tried to chase her but quickly stopped, feeling the sadness weigh heavier than the loss itself. Villagers nearby heard the commotion and came running. "What happened?" one asked. "A young woman stole my clothes," Ao said quietly, catching her breath. Kelechi arrived a few minutes later, after hearing the news from a boy who ran to tell him. He looked at Ao with both worry and love. "I warned you, my dear," he said gently. "Not everyone values kindness." Ao lowered her head. "I just wanted to help. I didn't think anyone would do such a thing." Kelechi placed a hand on her shoulder. "Do not stop being kind, Ao. Just be wise about who you trust." That night, Ao sat on the porch again looking at the stars. Her heart was heavy, not because of the lost clothes but because she couldn't understand why someone would steal from kindness. She thought of the children who still needed help, wondering if she had made a mistake. But even in her sadness she whispered, "I will still give. I will not let one thief steal my kindness." Across the village, under the same moonlight, Nara opened the stolen bag behind an old hut. She smiled greedily, pulling out a beautiful wrapper and holding it against her body. "These are mine now," she muttered. But as she reached for another dress, a gust of wind blew suddenly through the hut, scattering dust and dry leaves. Nara felt a strange chill crawl up her spine. She looked around, frightened. Somewhere in the distance, a drumbeat echoed faintly, slow, heavy, and deep. The night suddenly felt alive as though the spirits of the village were watching. She pushed the clothes aside, suddenly uneasy. She had no idea that by stealing what was given with love, she had invited something far beyond her understanding. And while Ao lay down to sleep, still holding faith in her heart, fate was quietly preparing to teach both women a lesson, one about giving and the other about taking. The morning sun rose slowly over Makuta village, painting the clay rooftops with a golden glow. Ao stepped outside, sweeping the front yard with a calm smile. Though she still remembered the woman who had stolen her bag of clothes, her heart had healed. "I will not stop doing good because of one bad person," she whispered to herself. Her husband, Kelechi, heard her and nodded quietly. He admired her strength, though he still feared her kindness might bring more trouble. That afternoon, Ao carried another bundle of old but neat clothes to the small bench outside her home. She planned to take them to the orphanage before sunset. As she sat to rest, she noticed a young woman walking slowly along the dusty road. Her steps were weak and her face looked pale under the heat. She carried no bag, no sandals, just worn slippers and torn clothes that barely covered her body. Ao stood up and called softly, "Sister, are you all right?" The young woman stopped and turned. Her name was Lena, though Ao didn't know it yet. She forced a small smile. "Good afternoon, Mama. I'm fine, just hungry and tired." Ao's kind heart melted at once. "Come, my child, sit here. You look weak. Have you eaten anything today?" Lena shook her head. "Not since yesterday. I lost my home after my mother died. I have nowhere to go. I sleep in the old market stalls." Ao's eyes filled with tears. "Oh, my dear," she said softly, "that is terrible. But don't worry. You will not go hungry today." She went inside and brought out a bowl of rice and beans still warm from lunch. Lena ate quickly, tears forming in her eyes. "Thank you, Mama," she said between bites. "May the heavens bless you." Ao smiled and touched her shoulder gently. "You remind me of my own daughter who lives in the city. Take your time, my child. When you finish eating, I have something for you." When Lena was done, Ao stood and brought out a few dresses from her bundle, beautiful wrappers and blouses she had planned to give the orphanage. "Here," Ao said kindly. "These are old but they are still good. Take them. You deserve to feel beautiful again." Lena gasped softly, pretending to be shocked. "Mama, I cannot take these. They look too fine." "Take them," Ao insisted with a smile. "They will look better on you than folded in my house." Lena stood and hugged her. "Thank you, Mama. I promise I will wear them proudly." She picked up the clothes carefully and walked away, waving as she went. Ao watched her until she disappeared down the road, her heart full of peace. Inside, Kelechi looked up from his chair. "You gave her those dresses?" he asked. "Yes," Ao said cheerfully. "She had nothing, Kelechi. How could I say no?" Kelechi sighed deeply. "You are too soft, my wife. I hope this woman is not another trickster." Ao shook her head. "No, not this one. I can tell her heart is pure." But in truth, Lena's heart was far from pure. As soon as she reached the market, she changed her gentle walk to a confident stride. She met a trader named Tayo who sold second-hand clothes and said boldly, "Brother, how much will you give me for these dresses?" Tayo looked through the clothes, nodding with interest. "These are fine. I'll give you 10,000 for all." Lena grinned widely. "Deal?" Within minutes, the clothes Ao had lovingly kept for years were gone, folded into a sack to be resold. Lena used part of the money to buy roasted corn and sweet drink, laughing with a group of friends by the roadside. "That old woman was too easy," she said, shaking her head. "Some people are born to give, others are born to take." As the sun set, Ao prepared to visit the orphanage. She filled a small basket with food and remaining clothes. The road to the orphanage was quiet, lined with palm trees swaying gently in the evening breeze. Children's laughter echoed faintly as she arrived at the compound. The matron, Mama Imani, greeted her warmly. "Ao, you have come again to bless us." "Yes," Ao said, smiling as she handed the basket over. "Please tell the children these are from my heart." As they talked, Ao glanced around and asked, "Did a young woman named Lena come by earlier? She said she might bring some things here." Mama Imani frowned. "Lena? No, my dear. No one by that name has come here." Ao's smile slowly faded. Her hands tightened around the edge of her wrapper. "Are you sure?" she asked softly. "I am sure," the matron said. "We've seen no one new today." For a long moment Ao said nothing. The truth settled heavily in her heart. The young woman had lied. When she returned home that night, she sat silently by the fire. Kelechi noticed her quietness. Something happened? He asked gently. Ao nodded slowly. The girl never went to the orphanage. She sold the clothes. Kelechi sighed deeply and shook his head. You see, Ao? Not everyone deserves your kindness. Tears welled in her eyes, but she wiped them quickly. Still, she said softly, I cannot close my heart because others are closed. If I stop helping, then the world will become darker. Kelechi took her hand and squeezed it gently. You have a good heart, my love. Just remember, kindness needs wisdom beside it. That night, Ao prayed before sleeping. May my kindness never turn bitter even when others use it wrongly, she whispered. Far away in the market, Lena lay on her mat counting her money. But as she closed her eyes, she began to hear whispers, soft at first, then louder. The wind rustled the roof of her hut like fingers scratching. She sat up, trembling, her eyes darting around. The dresses she had sold were gone, but somehow she thought she could hear fabric fluttering in the dark. Ao meanwhile dreamed of the same dresses, only now they were floating down a river carried by unseen hands. She woke up suddenly, heart pounding, with the strange feeling that her kindness had been tested but not forgotten. She didn't yet know that something was about to happen, something that would show her that good deeds, even when stolen, always find their way back. The night air in Makuta was quiet, but Ao could not sleep. She lay awake beside her husband, staring at the ceiling as the soft chirping of crickets filled the room. The events of the day kept circling in her mind, Lena's sad eyes, her fake smile, and the heavy truth that Ao's kindness had been used for selfish gain. She turned to the side and whispered a prayer. Dear Lord, she said softly, if I have done wrong by being too trusting, forgive me. But please show me how to help wisely. Kelechi stirred beside her, half asleep. You're still thinking about that girl? He murmured. Ao sighed. Yes, Kelechi. I keep asking myself, maybe I should have known. Maybe I was foolish. He reached out and patted her arm gently. You were kind, not foolish. But kindness needs eyes open, not closed. Ao smiled faintly at his words. She turned toward the small window and watched the moonlight touch the mango tree outside. It shimmered gently, as if the night itself wanted to comfort her. She finally drifted to sleep, though her heart was still heavy. The next morning, Ao woke up early. She wanted to clear her mind, so she went to the market with a small basket of fruit. The marketplace was already alive, traders shouting prices, women selling vegetables, and children running between the stalls. The smell of roasted maize and pepper soup filled the air. Ao greeted her neighbors warmly as she walked through. For a while, she forgot about Lena and simply enjoyed the noise and color of the market. But then, as she passed a fabric stall, her eyes froze. Across the road stood a tall woman laughing with a friend. She was wearing a bright blue dress with small golden flowers on the sleeves, the same dress Ao had given Lena. Ao's heart skipped a beat. She knew that dress well, she had sewn it herself years ago. She stepped closer quietly, her curiosity growing. When the woman turned, Ao recognized her face. She was not Lena. She was one of the traders who often bought second-hand clothes to sell again. Ao didn't need anyone to explain what had happened. Lena had sold her gifts. For a moment, Ao's chest tightened with disappointment. But instead of anger, she felt something deeper, understanding. She realized now that giving without care could do more harm than good. She stood silently, watching as the woman folded some other clothes for her customers. Ao whispered to herself, kindness must also be wise. Maybe this is the lesson I needed. When she returned home, Kelechi noticed her calm face and raised an eyebrow. You found out something, didn't you? Ao nodded slowly. Yes. I saw my blue dress in the market today. Another woman was wearing it. Kelechi frowned. So, that girl truly sold them? Yes, Ao said quietly, setting her basket on the table. But I am not angry. I just know now that I must be more careful. If I want to help, I should do it the right way. Kelechi smiled slightly. Now that sounds like my wise wife. That afternoon, Ao went to visit the orphanage again. The sun was high, and the dusty path shimmered with heat. When she arrived, the children ran up to greet her with bright smiles. She gave them fruits from her basket, laughing as they thanked her politely. Then she sat with Mama Imani, the caretaker. Mama, she began softly, I need your advice. I gave clothes to a girl who pretended to be poor. She sold them instead of giving them here. Mama Imani sighed and nodded knowingly. It happens more than you think, my dear. Some people see kindness as weakness. But your heart is good. It only needs a little guidance. I want to do better, Ao said earnestly. I don't want to stop helping. I just want to make sure my help truly reaches the right people. Mama Imani smiled. Then let us plan something. The chief has been talking about creating a small donation committee for the village. You should be part of it. That same evening Ao and Mama Imani went to see Chief Oba, the respected elder of Makuta. His compound was wide, with carved wooden chairs and palm trees swaying in the breeze. Chief Oba greeted them warmly. Ao? The woman with a heart as soft as water, he said, smiling. What brings you here? Ao bowed respectfully. Chief, I came to ask your guidance. I gave clothes to someone I thought was in need, but she deceived me. I wish to find a better way to help people, one that will not be abused. The chief stroked his beard thoughtfully. You have done well to speak of this. Many give without thought and end up feeding lies. But when good hearts unite, even mistakes can build wisdom. He called for his assistant to bring paper and ink. We shall form a new system, the chief declared proudly. From now on, all donations, food, clothes, or money, will pass through a trusted council of villagers. The orphanage, the church, and the market leaders will each send one person. Together, they will make sure every gift reaches the right hands. Ao felt her heart lift with relief. That is a wonderful idea, Chief. No one will be cheated again. Chief Oba nodded. And I want you, Ao, to help lead it. You understand both the value of kindness and the cost of misplaced trust. Ao was surprised. Me, Chief? He smiled. Yes, you. The people will listen to you because you have lived the lesson yourself. By the time Ao returned home, the evening sky was glowing with shades of pink and orange. Kelechi was outside fixing a broken stool. When he saw her face he smiled. Something good has happened, he said knowingly. Ao sat beside him and told him everything, about the chief, the meeting, and the plan to create a fair donation council. Kelechi nodded with pride. Now you are not only helping but teaching others how to help. That is true wisdom. Ao laughed softly. Maybe this was meant to happen. If I had not met Lena, I would still be giving without thinking. Sometimes even pain teaches the best lessons. That night, as she lay in bed, Ao felt peaceful for the first time in many days. The moon shone brightly through the window, and the sounds of the village faded into a calm silence. She whispered another prayer, not one of sadness but of gratitude. Thank you for showing me that kindness can grow stronger through mistakes. The next morning, the chief's announcement spread quickly across Makuta. Villagers gathered to hear about the new system, and many nodded in agreement. Even those who had once been careless with their giving felt inspired by Ao's story. And somewhere in the marketplace, Lena heard the news too. For the first time, she felt a small sting of shame in her heart. Maybe, she thought, the woman she had tricked was not weak after all. Maybe she was strong in a way Lena had never understood. Ao, unaware of Lena's thoughts, continued her day with a calm smile. She had learned her lesson, but she had not lost her light. Her kindness was still alive, only now it walked beside wisdom. The morning sun rose softly over Makuta, bathing the village in warm gold. Birds sang from the palm trees, and the smell of roasted maize drifted from nearby huts. Ao stepped out of her home, carrying a wooden basket filled with folded clothes. Her heart felt light, her steps firm. She was ready for the new beginning she had planned. Weeks had passed since the chief approved her idea for a fair donation system, and now the day had come to start it. She wanted the village clothing drive to be more than just an act of giving. It was to be a celebration of unity, care, and wisdom. Kelechi helped her arrange benches under a large mango tree in the village square. Soon others joined in. Mama Imani brought extra baskets, children carried stools, and young men hung bright cloths to shade the tables. There was laughter and excitement in the air. Ao, one of the women said as she placed folded shirts on the table, you've started something good. The village needed this. Ao smiled. We are doing it together, she said kindly. When we help each other with open hearts and open eyes, no one goes hungry or cold. By midday the square was filled with people. Widows, elders, and children dressed in faded clothes. Some came shyly, others with hopeful smiles. Ao greeted each person gently, making sure everyone received something they truly needed. She gave wrappers to the mothers, shirts to the farmers, and school uniforms to the children. Her heart glowed as she watched happiness spread across their faces. She could feel that her kindness this time was not wasted. In the distance, standing quietly behind a tree, was Lena. Her eyes were fixed on Ao, and guilt twisted inside her. She had not slept well for many nights. Every time she saw someone wearing one of Ao's donated clothes, her heart hurt. The kindness she had betrayed now stood before her, shining brighter than ever. She remembered the lie she had told, The fake tears, the false story about losing her home. At that time she had only thought about her hunger, her need for money, and her shame at begging. She didn't realize she had stolen not just clothes but trust. Now, seeing Ao surrounded by grateful villagers, Lena felt small. She took a deep breath and stepped forward. Her feet felt heavy, and her voice trembled as she spoke. "Ao," she called softly. The chatter in the square quieted as people turned to look. Ao looked up and saw her. For a moment, surprise flashed in her eyes. "Lena," she said gently. "You came." Lena lowered her head, unable to meet Ao's gaze. "I did something wrong," she began, her voice breaking. "I lied to you. I took your kindness and sold your clothes. I was hungry, ashamed, and I didn't know what else to do." The villagers murmured among themselves, some frowning, others whispering. Ao walked slowly toward Lena. Everyone expected her to be angry, maybe even to scold her. But Ao stopped right in front of her and looked into her trembling eyes. "I know," Ao said softly. "I found out. But I am glad you came today." Lena's eyes widened in surprise. "You're not angry?" Ao shook her head. "No. Anger won't change the past. But maybe kindness can change what comes next." She touched Lena's arm gently. "You said you were hungry and ashamed. Those are hard things to carry alone. If you truly want to change, help me today. Join us. There is still much to do." Tears welled up in Lena's eyes. She nodded quickly, her voice barely above a whisper. "I will. I want to help." Ao turned to the crowd. "We all make mistakes," she said, her voice calm but strong. "But when we choose to make things right, we become better. Lena has come to help, and that is what matters." The villagers watched silently. Then Mama Imani stepped forward, smiling warmly. "Come, my daughter," she said to Lena. "Take this basket. We need your hands." Lena's lips trembled into a small smile as she took the basket and began folding clothes beside Ao. At first, some people avoided looking at her, but as time passed they saw her working hard, carrying, sorting, and smiling shyly at the children. Slowly the tension melted away. By afternoon the pile of clothes had grown smaller. Every widow and every child left with something new to wear. Laughter and songs filled the air as women clapped and danced, celebrating the spirit of giving. Even Kelechi joined in, teasingly holding up a large old shirt and saying, "Who remembers when Ao wore this?" Everyone laughed. Ao stood beside Lena, watching the joyful crowd. "You see," she said softly, "giving is not about what we lose but what we share." Lena nodded, her eyes filled with tears again, but this time they were tears of relief and gratitude. "Thank you for forgiving me," she whispered. "I don't deserve it." Ao smiled gently. "Maybe not, but none of us are perfect. What matters is that you are here now doing right. That is enough." As the sun began to set, the sky turned orange and pink. The villagers cleaned up the square, leaving it neat and bright. The baskets were empty now, but Ao's heart was full. She looked around and saw hope, real living hope, shining in the eyes of everyone there. Lena stayed behind to help Ao and Kelechi pack the last few things. When they were done, Ao gave Lena a folded piece of cloth. "Here," she said, "a small gift. Not because you asked but because you earned it." Lena took it with shaking hands. "I'll never forget this day," she said. "You've shown me that kindness isn't weak, it's strong." Ao smiled. "Remember that, and one day you'll teach it to someone else." When night finally covered Makuta, the air was cool and peaceful. Lanterns flickered in the square, and the laughter of children echoed from nearby huts. Ao stood quietly with Kelechi, watching the stars appear one by one. "She changed," Kelechi said softly. Ao nodded. "Because she was given a second chance. Sometimes that's all a person needs." Kelechi smiled. "And you, my wife, gave it to her." Ao chuckled lightly. "Maybe, but I also gave it to myself. Forgiving her helped me let go." The couple walked home hand in hand under the starlit sky. The village slept peacefully that night, their hearts touched by the simple lesson Ao had shared, that true kindness is not about what you give, but about how deeply you understand. And somewhere in her small hut on the edge of the village, Lena folded her new cloth carefully, whispering to herself, "One day I will help others too, just like Ao helped me." The next morning the village of Makuta was full of energy and joy. The clothing drive that Ao had started had turned into something much greater than she had imagined. What began as a simple act of giving old clothes now became a yearly event that united everyone in the community. People no longer gave things away carelessly, they gave with care, with thought, and with open hearts. The village square was bright with colors. Piles of clean, folded clothes were placed neatly on tables. Children laughed as they tried on new shirts and wrappers. Old women smiled as they wrapped soft fabric around their shoulders. Ao stood near the big mango tree, her hands clasped together, watching the happiness spread like sunlight. Lena stood beside her, helping to hand out clothes to families. She moved with calm confidence, her face glowing with gratitude. Many people had doubted her when she first came to help, but now everyone could see her change. She worked harder than anyone else, sorting, folding, carrying, and comforting those who came with nothing. Her hands once took selfishly, but now they gave freely. Lena, Ao said with a gentle smile, you've done well. You've turned your mistake into something good. Lena's eyes glistened. You showed me how, Ao. I didn't understand kindness before. I only thought of myself. But now I know, real kindness doesn't shame people, it lifts them. Ao nodded slowly. Yes. Giving is not only about helping others but also about protecting your gift, making sure it truly helps, not hurts. All around them, laughter and singing filled the air. The villagers danced in small circles, clapping to the rhythm of the drums. Mama Imani started a song and soon everyone joined in. The melody rose above the square like a celebration of life and hope. Ao's husband, Kelechi, came over carrying a tray of fruit juice. You've done something wonderful again, he said proudly. Look at them, even the children are learning from you. Ao smiled, wiping her hands on her wrapper. I only planted a seed, she replied. It grew because everyone watered it with love. Kelechi chuckled. Still, it started with your heart and your wisdom. You proved that kindness must walk hand in hand with understanding. As the day went on, Ao walked through the crowd, greeting families and making sure no one left empty-handed. She met an old man who had not owned new clothes in years. His hands trembled as he received a simple white shirt. Bless you, my daughter, he said softly. You've given me more than cloth, you've given me dignity. Those words stayed in Ao's heart. She looked around and realized that every smile, every word of thanks, was proof that true giving could heal not just one person but a whole community. Later that evening, when the sun began to set, Ao gathered everyone around. The golden light made the faces of the villagers glow warmly. Children sat cross-legged on the ground, while the elders leaned on their walking sticks, listening. My friends, Ao began, her voice calm and steady, today we did something good together. We shared, we cared, and we gave from our hearts. But I want us to remember one thing, kindness must be wise. It must open its eyes before it opens its hands. People nodded quietly, listening closely. She continued, when we give blindly we may feed greed. But when we give with wisdom we feed hope. Kindness is not just about what we give away but how and to whom. A kind act should lift others up, not make them lazy or deceitful. There was a soft murmur of agreement among the crowd. Lena lowered her head, tears forming in her eyes. Ao smiled at her and said, we must also forgive those who misuse kindness. Sometimes their pain makes them act wrongly. But forgiveness gives them a chance to change, just as Lena did. Everyone turned to look at Lena. Some of the villagers clapped, and a few walked up to pat her shoulder. She smiled shyly, her heart full of warmth. Thank you, she whispered. You all gave me a second chance. When the event ended, the people of Makuta went home with full hearts. The stars began to appear one by one in the night sky, and soft drums still echoed faintly from the square. Ao and Kelechi stayed behind, helping to clean up the last few baskets. Kelechi looked at his wife and said, You've changed the way people think about giving. Ao smiled softly. Maybe. But it wasn't me alone. Everyone learned together. We've all seen that generosity must have both heart and sense. She looked up at the moon and whispered, Before you give your old clothes out, make sure your kindness goes to the right hands. Those simple words became a saying in Makuta. Elders repeated them to their children, and children grew up remembering them. Whenever someone gave something away, food, clothes, or money, they first asked themselves if it would truly help. Lena continued to work beside Ao, helping organize drives every few months. She even began teaching young girls how to sew, using leftover fabric from donations. People came to trust her again and she found joy in serving others. One day months later, a group of travelers passed through Makuta. They had heard about the famous Makuta clothing drive, where no one was turned away and no act of giving was wasted. They met Ao and asked how it all began. Ao smiled modestly and said, It started with a mistake, and a lesson. A woman once sold my old clothes. But instead of anger, I chose understanding. That one act taught me that kindness without wisdom can be lost, but kindness with wisdom can change everything. The travelers left inspired, carrying her story to other villages. Soon, nearby communities began doing the same, giving with thought, teaching kindness with care. Years passed and Ao grew older, but her legacy lived on. Every year, the people of Makuta gathered under the mango tree to celebrate the spirit of giving. They would tell children about how one woman's gentle heart and wise hands changed the meaning of charity forever. And each time they began the drive, someone, often Lena, would stand before the crowd and say the same words that Ao once did. Before you give your old clothes out, make sure your kindness goes to the right hands. The villagers would nod, smiling warmly, understanding what those words truly meant. It was not only about clothes or gifts, it was about love, respect, and wisdom shared among people who cared. The lights from the lanterns would glow softly through the night, and the air would fill with laughter, music, and the spirit of unity, a living reminder that wise kindness never fades.